Good morning, and thanks for joining us here at the SMITE Minor League. My name is Finch. I'm joined by Tom F. Baddinger, and I'm happy to have you here with me, Tom, as well. Okay. We're going into the SML, specifically in Europe, to get things started. Flashpoint up against OutCold.
This is going to be one of the fun matchups, one of my preferred matchups if I'm touching on a personal note. Looking at these guys, Sibi's squad, Flashpoint has been one of my favorite teams to watch, and OutCold is the team that we're all kind of waiting to turn up.
Yes, we expect OutCold to have done better than how they've done. In fact, let's get the standings up so you guys can see what you're talking about. OutCold should be down there at the bottom at 2-6 with Flashpoint on 6-2. But believe it or not, that's technically OutCold on the up and up, as they got one of their first win in weeks just last week. They were actually able to take down Queso, who'd been looking strong lately, so a big win for them. And then on the inverse, Flashpoint actually took a loss to Simplicity. So these two teams are kind of going in opposite directions from what we expected. On a one-week streak, though, so it's nothing to get too excited about.
Exactly. So this is really kind of the litmus test. This is going to tell us which direction they're moving in for sure, whether it's up or down, because you're kind of looking at each team individually.
That's exactly right. Now, OutCold is one that we definitely should focus on. I think that for this week, at least listed from the check-ins, it's Hayzer coming in for Breeze, which has actually been unfortunate. Breeze has been looking really good for them in that support role, and they've been having some trouble, I think, finding a guy that really could fit that for him, and Breeze was that one. But to be fair, if you're getting, former SPL coach and pretty good player in his own right, Hayzer stepping in for you, then you're not feeling too bad.
Sure, and yeah, there's something we said about all that, but I think the bigger statement to be said is about consistency.
Yes.
We always, going back to Season 1 Thirst is a joke, but the reason that team performed so poorly was lack of consistency. You can't practice with a squad if you don't play with the same squad over and over again. After what we saw from Breeze, I enjoyed watching him play, and I would have liked to see OutCold kind of stick with it, win or lose, to try and learn consistency and work in that direction. They don't need to learn. These guys are all very good. They need to learn how to play with each other. So that's kind of the bigger statement there, I think.
I think so, and that's really what it feels like is missing to me at that point, and what was really so good about them having Breeze was that it was their support play that was struggling. I mean, because everyone else on this team, Dimi, FrostiaK, Prime, Spudio, these are all guys that you absolutely implicitly trust, to be able to play Smite correctly and be able to win you some games. And so when they had that consistency all there, they were starting to look like a scary team like we expected. Remember, we thought it was going to be Emilito at the start of the year, and, well, now we're getting him in the SPL, it turns out, so we'll get to see him eventually anyway.
Yeah, we're going to see some Emilito, but like you said, these guys have all either won a championship or been around one.
Yes.
Prime constantly just like touching the doors of number one, and
literally
then you see
right
Dimi actually took it home. Right. These guys, you trust them to push the buttons. It's about playing together as a unit, and if you're going to switch up that unit, that's going to be a rough spot. So here with Hayzer stepping in, first and foremost, I hope that it's unforeseen circumstances in the best way possible.
Sure.
Because I would like to see Breeze stick around. So that's kind of what I'm looking at with Flashpoint.
And then they have OutCold, and they're going up against Flashpoint, right, who is not going to make things easy for them. It feels almost like when old Cleveland, like you knew they were giving the ball to LeBron, right, to do like an NBA reference. Well, this Flashpoint team gives the ball to Johnny. And we all know that's what they're doing. Their cards are face up on the table, and it's still really hard to stop them. That's how good that this team is around him and how much of a star player that he can be for this team. If you give him some of his signature picks, and even if you don't, he can just get things done for your squad.
And that's the fun part, is that obviously Smite's a team game, and Johnny's able to do what Johnny's able to do in part because of his fantastic team. You've got a strong set of players around him. Even the duo lane, which I think has been the weak point of this team historically, has kind of stepped up here. Kespainify and Fusify have become a little bit more active, where Sibi, we've always expected this out of him. FaraKrik, we've always expected this out of him. So now that the team is kind of more complete, Johnny's able to be a little bit more front and center, and that allows the rest of the team to fall into place.
And how well can this team kind of maintain their composure is so interesting to me, because remember, actually towards the end of SML last year, this roster as composed were kind of the top team. All of a sudden, they made their way up to the top, and then they couldn't get Johnny to play with them, and they kind of fell apart towards the end, and they missed their chance to come to the big leagues. Well, right here on that same precipice, we're trying to qualify to MSI. Can they maintain a composure again? Can they keep everyone there again? And can they make their way in? It feels like that same question looms over them.
It was never a composure question for me, Finch. It was strictly just logistics. Sure. I don't know what caused Johnny not to be able to come to LAN. Hopefully it's not a truancy situation. Sure. But at the end of the day, if he comes to LAN, they win those matches. I firmly believe that last year. So looking at what's going on this year, yeah, just keep going. Make sure Johnny kind of gets his ducks in a row. Come to LAN. Win the games. I want to see Johnny here.
We'd love to.
This is a team that I've enjoyed watching this entire phase, and I think that they can stand up on their own 2 feet.
It's something that they can do. They got to make sure they show us here up against a team of OutCold that's been looking a little bit better lately. Let's go ahead and get into those picks and bans. It will be OutCold in that first pick spot, which means that recently you'll be relegated to the ones doing the Merlin banning, doing the Xbalanque banning and the like. If you're OutCold, though, I imagine you'll be doing some OutQuang banning, right?
OutQuang, and well, we're going to start off with the Giannis ban. Giannis has been FaraKrik's kind of go-to, yes. And this is, I always say, ban the play style, not the character. And Giannis enables Johnny so much that whether he's playing OutQuang or Agni or whatever the hell you want to give him, Giannis portals allowing him to travel in and out is too much.
And by the way, when I say ban OutQuang, that's just the first step, I feel like, of many to try and stop Johnny, because he's still going to be very good on whatever jungler that we give him. So this is just one step to make it more possible to win. It's not, you have not won yet.
Johnny's OutQuang is one of the rare occasions where, you know, there's an exception to every rule, and the rule that I literally just said, the OutQuang is one of those exceptions. Johnny on this character is just too strong for this league and this meta right now, so you've got to ban that out. He will have access to some of his other carries, but the prowess that he shows on OutQuang is just unmatched.
Well, this is interesting. Achilles and Xbalanque both make it through the ban phase, and that makes some sense because OutCold had to do some more targeted bans specifically against Flashpoint, and if you are Flashpoint, I suppose you leave a couple open so that you can at least grab one. They're going to go with the Fafnir, which makes me think they must be rounding it out then with the Achilles, or the Xbalanque, excuse me.
It could be. We've seen a lot of Hachiman as well, and the Freya certainly pairs well with Fafnir, so I like this look so far.
I don't know, man. Darkest Night is really good. It's going to be hard for me to say it is not good, so I don't know. It's a good ability. I would take it if I was on the side of OutCold. I would pick it up here.
I mean, it's possible. Right now, Flashpoint, or OutCold right now, they could look for a hunter, and Xbalanque probably is not a bad look.
No.
It's going to be the Jing Wei, though, and that's really what I was going to go for. Is Xbalanque is not a bad look if you're looking to be aggressive. Getting whooped up, Jing Wei is going to be extremely safe out of the Freya. These have been the two hunters that we're looking at, and to oversimplify things, Jing Wei when you want to be safe, Xbalanque when you want to be aggressive.
And Jing Wei is very safe, and the way that she can do a thing that no one else can do, which she can like airstrike like over walls and such like that. So it's an ability to reposition that not everybody gives you. And when you've got this Jormungandr on your team, maybe they're trying to play around these knockups. Perhaps this is an Achilles later on they're kind of trying to lean their way into for OutCold, and Flashpoint had to be a little bit more wary of that. Maybe that's something they got to try and ban away here.
FaraKrik gets his Agni here, and I think that's a really big point because when FaraKrik is able to do multiple things for the team, that's when they really succeed. He's not an all-out utility player because you definitely expect some raw output from him as far as aggressive offensive plays are concerned, and I think Agni fits that bill very well. We look at Giannis as some of his more powerful characters. Agni's kind of the same idea. I'm going to punch you in the face, but I'm going to set my team up while doing it.
OutCold banning out some other hyper carries here in the jungle role, which I love to see. Kali taken away. Flashpoint turning a bit of an eye towards Prime in that middle lane. Though, hey, maybe he's trying to do that mid lane Jormungandr, and they've already got Prime's pick in. We don't know for sure at this point, right? So Flashpoint gambling by taking away the Nuon, the Hera. Likely the Jormungandr not for him, but it could flex that way.
We saw it yesterday in the console league as well. Zero's obviously played it in the Pro League if you've been following the headline stuff. So the precedent has been set.
It's there.
I will be very honest. PrettyPriMe has always succeeded on the traditional mages.
He has.
Even when I see him stray to like Neath and the mage hunters, I still get mad. I want to see old school mages on PrettyPriMe. Just putting that out there.
Well, Sun Wukong comes through. Very likely going to be the solo laner here for Flashpoint. And that's with Bellona still out there, too. So there are definitely some top picks that have not been picked up just yet. They've got a plan of what they want to get done here.
Sun Wukong and Sibi's hand is so undeal-withable. It is just so obnoxious. It's always there. It's always in your face, knocking up, just causing issues. And him just causing all that problems allows Johnny to be on the outside doing his thing.
Hey, Zhong from PrettyPriMe? That sounds pretty good to me then, right? If that's where that ends up going, which very likely, with the way the team comp's looking, then that's where that's going to be. At this point, they still need, hey, a Terra to come right on through as well.
Bakasura.
Bakasura for Flashpoint then?
Yeah, I want to see either a Bakasura or an Arachne, but I think Baka would work out a little bit better against the Zhong with the Butcher Blades.
And so then I'm thinking it must be Achilles in the jungle for this role then too. They'll be giving that one over to FrostiaK, let him play aggressive, at least on the side of OutCold. Does Flashpoint do take some time to think about what it is they want to give to Johnny? They do this a lot though. When something like Wukong is banned out, they'll let Johnny kind of look at the whole landscape of the game and then select his pick. And Bakasura, he's ready to eat.
Baka's going to go with Fafnir. Baka's going to do well against the tanky characters like Achilles, Zhong, and Terra. I love this strat for Flashpoint. They've enabled their jungler. It's a good look.
They're good at a lot of stages of the game as well, too, so this could be potentially scary for OutCold if they cannot slow them down. Let's go ahead and get ready then for game number 1. OutCold up against Flashpoint. It's Aggro and Toli to take the call.
Thank you, Finch and Tom. OutCold looking up from the basement at the top of the tippy tower. That's Flashpoint right now. Toli, this team has been incredible so far in this phase and looking to continue it today.
And you wouldn't expect these results if you were to look at the player names at the beginning of the split. Flashpoint having Johnny carry them with the hyper late game carries between the Kali, Wukong, Bakasura has worked out for OutCold Gaming so far in Season 6. Or sorry, for Flashpoint in Season 6. But OutCold, a little bit slow to start, sitting at 2-6. And with the names of Dimi, FrostiaK, PrettyPriMe, you would expect them to kind of step it up.
Look at this proxy happening on the right-hand side. Both Guardians, and again, it is Hayzer today instead of Breeze subbing in for OutCold. Hayzer and Dimi decide to proxy between the Tier 1 and Tier 2 on the right, but Fusify is doing his own thing over here on the left. He's not too worried about it. They invade the red buff successfully. Spudio and PrettyPriMe both left on an island. This is all in the name of stripping away that blue buff from Sibi.
And Sibi, as a Sun Wukong player, desperately needs that blue buff. Sun Wukong relies a lot on his mana to clear. He doesn't have the AoE cleave basic attacks. Dimi on the Jormungandr does, so he doesn't necessarily need to have the blue buff, but it certainly helps.
Spudio certainly taking some damage, but going to return some back Kespainify's way. So OutCold trade both of their duo side buffs for one solo side buff because Johnny's still able to secure his speed. On paper, it seems like that's a win for Flashpoint.
It absolutely is a win for Flashpoint. FrostiaK's still able to get his speed, which is the important part to be able to make these rotations. He needs to kind of sit in that dual lane to alleviate that pressure. Spudio, on purpose, left alone as a Jing. Very safe hunter. You're not too worried about him getting ganked ever. So it's about these jungle rotations. The 2v1, Spudio should survive, but if Johnny were to make a presence at level 5, could be an issue.
Though I do want to touch on picks and bans very quickly because Flashpoint's been a team that's kind of doing their thing all split long. They are predictable in their picks and bans. Not necessarily a negative, as Spudio gets his dash up just in time to get away from some pressure in the duo lane. Flashpoint's a predictable team in what they want to pick. Sibi plays Wukong every single game it's open, and I'm kind of surprised. We've seen teams take him off of that Wukong, and I think there's been a noticeable drop-off in his performance. The dodge ban felt a little weird to me if you're going for Jorm and Terra.
Yeah.
I don't know. That one was a bit odd. We'll see if it pays off for them as a speed buff invade seems to be in the works. Johnny on the receiving end of that card from PrettyPriMe, and Hayzer just there to do some zoning. Of course, it is tough to invade a Bakasura because he might just walk up and try and eat that minion, but instead FrostiaK gets the stun right on time, and Johnny and FaraKrik both now have to get on the run. Nicely timed Shield of Achilles there from FrostiaK.
And look at this, even Sibi not able to get off any poke because Hayzer stuns him out. Beautiful zoning from Hayzer. Stuns out Johnny to delay him a little bit, allowing the damage from FrostiaK to take effect. Not only that, FrostiaK with a stun of his own, well-timed, interrupts the eat minion animation, confirming the speed buff with that combat dodge. Perfectly executed.
So this time, Flashpoint ended up getting 2 buffs on the right. Still losing, both buffs on the left, but now it's even, at least. And you can certainly make the argument that speed and blue, pre-5 minutes in the game, are worth far more than red and purple. So this time, I think Flashpoint comes out ahead.
Absolutely, but the problem for FrostiaK is he's just now hits level 4, whereas Johnny has been level 4 for a little bit. 3-way sharing that speed buff is starting to hurt a few members from OutCold Gaming. That level 5 Bakasura can easily make a play, and I would probably expect it to be onto the dual lane, maybe trying to shut down Spudio before he gets the airstrike. If you cripple out the Jing, his beats are on cooldown for 30 seconds. There's a small window there.
Certainly some opportunity, but the idea with this start for OutCold is that Spudio is going to get so far ahead, even a gank from Johnny shouldn't matter too much, and I think Flashpoint are starting to get the memo. Kespainify now left alone, though this is usually the time where supports start rotating in towards the mid lane and affecting those fights over there. But the biggest XP differential seems to be here in the solo lane. Dimi up against Sibi, not getting a blue buff yet in this game. Certainly has hurt Sibi, but it seems like he's holding his own for the most part, Toli. He's not completely pushed all the way under.
And to answer your question earlier about Sibi constantly getting his son Wukong, it's like, who do you really ban out of Flashpoint? Because they have so many predictable picks, right?
Yeah.
Johnny on the FaraKrik, FaraKrik on the Giannis. Those were the first two bans that OutCold Gaming threw away, and then Sun Wukong being picked after that secondary phase. I don't really necessarily mind it because, like, if you're banning away someone, if you can't handle a Sun Wukong, who can you really handle in team fights or in the solo lane?
FaraKrik has to use Purification Beads. Prime now gonna fire off that ultimate, and Hayzer's right there with the blink. First blood goes the way of OutCold Gaming's mid laner. Perfect trap laid by OutCold. FaraKrik just on some mid camps too low.
Hayzer at the right place at the right time. Not a very common sight to see blink on a level 1 support Terra, but hey, to each their own. It's been working out for OutCold Gaming now with the 5-minute first blood, but it's about how they can abuse FaraKrik even further. With these speeds being down on 130 seconds, expect more pressure in that mid lane.
Dimi doing quite a bit of damage to Sibi over here. Gonna add to it with that bellow. Sibi actually gonna need to use that ultimate, and he won't even get it off. Dimi with the clean solo kill. Sibi just kind of stood there and got auto-attacked a whole bunch. Well, didn't do a whole lot of anything.
That's the problem with Sun Wukong. Without a blue buff, you're not able to clear the wave effectively with your basic attacks, whereas Dimi's dropping pools, using his basic attack cleave. It was very easy for him to win that trade throughout. Not a very common matchup to see Jormungandr versus Sun Wukong, as Sun Wukong is a very old school god, Jormungandr a very new school god, so you get a battle of the same generations.
Prime in trouble now. Hayzer drops the ultimate, but I don't think that healing's going to be enough. It is not. Johnny able to put Flashpoint on the board. FrostiaK's here, but doesn't have the damage. You know who does? It's Flashpoint. Fusify with the kill on the FrostiaK now, but here comes Dimi.
Jormungandr with the World Serpent, knocking up Johnny once, knocking up FaraKrik another time, lands in the backline, but it's going to be on FaraKrik instead.
Dimi does find some purchase with that rotation, now looking for a little bit more. Great stun by Fusify, and that's slow on top of the stun, actually enough to get the support out of range of that rotation from Dimi. And that's the problem sometimes with Zhong. I mean, he has to go up pretty close to the wave in order to clear it, and Johnny and the rest of Flashpoint capitalize.
Oh, absolutely. But it was still a good trade. Flashpoint able to respond in kind with a couple of kills for themselves. OutCold Gaming still keeping the game in their advantage. About a 500 gold lead. It's 3-3 in the kill count. Experience doesn't really matter. A lot of aggression in that right side of the jungle invades, but I don't think they're going to strip away the blue buff this time.
No, looks like Sibi will be on the receiving end. Johnny there to secure it for him. The horrific emblem, you pointed out the blink first relic for Hayzer, but Fusify goes for the horrific, and that's kind of the perfect answer. Normally I'd expect a shell or maybe even a sprint to get away from the Zhong, but the horrific also great against Zhong, and especially without a sprint on Hayzer's side, Prime has very few options once he gets slowed outside of using those beats.
This is what happened in Season 5 when people were trying to figure out what was effective in the meta was, all right, horrific emblem, you're getting easy kills in the duo lane, so counter that you would get sprinted. Now we're kind of deviating away from that because supports aren't in the duo lane. We're not seeing the Fenrir Najas as often as we are in the support role to look for these first bloods, so you can be a little more creative with your relic selection. If you're able to put pressure on the solo lane, that solo laner is not going to have sprint to get away necessarily, and that could be the effective strategy of running the horrific.
Speaking of effective strategies, OutCold's plan to shut down Sibi has worked out very nicely so far. He's down 900 gold right now to Dimi, and now under even more pressure. Knock up straight into the ultimate. He knew he was in trouble. Fusify on the receiving end of a couple skills from OutCold. Hayzer now caught in a bad spot. He's got to use that Terra's Blessing defensively. Regurgitate comes out as well, and Johnny eats him up really clean. But Fusify next on the list. FrostiaK with that execution, looking for one more onto Sibi again, who doesn't have his ultimate, but yet again that bull form comes up clutch. It's a 1-for-1, support for support, but Fusify had a pretty big bounty on him, Toli. He was 2-0-2 before he took that spill.
And important for Sibi to be a part of some of these kills to start catching up in the experience department. The important kills need to be onto Dimi. That's where the advantage really lies. Hayzer's already down. He was level 5 when Fusify was level 7. So I'm not too mad that Hayzer died there because of how aggressive he is trying to pick out FaraKrik in the mid lane. So his sacrifice has been working out for OutCold Gaming, whereas Fusify's life is a little more valuable.
Fafnir passive helping him get a little bit more gold, and also just the nature of getting 2 kills already, and the other 2 kills your team has had, you have assisted on. Sibi and Dimi warring over the Totem of Ku, and Dimi wins that, and the poke trade as well. This Jorm solo, man, Dimi's making it look awfully potent. It's a pretty aggressive build he's gone for so far.
It's very cost effective, right? So Pen Boots obviously doing a lot of damage. And then Dynasty Plate Helmet, a 1700 gold bridge item with physical, defense, power, magical, and penetration to mitigate Sibi's Warrior's Blessing, making that basically useless at this point in the game.
Gonna build into the Void Stone as well. More cheap protection that also gives him some damage. And this seems to, I remember Dimi going for a pretty offensive tilted build last time we saw him play this Jormungandr as well. Seems to be something he's a fan of. FaraKrik, a couple bombs onto Hayzer, and by a couple I mean all of them. FrostiaK there with the ultimate, but not in XU range. Combat dodge will get the job done, but now Frosty's gonna fall to Kespainify's rotation. Hayzer right on top as well. Valkyrie's discretion not enough, but Hayzer's going to escape Scage down. Kespainify on the other hand going back to base the hard way. Dimi is able to get that kill, and he's A-OK. The World Serpent, the best escape in moments like this. Another clutch rotation from Dimi makes a fight go well for OutCold.
Very methodical plays from Dimi. Almost Season 2, Season 3-esque, how he's able to rotate to make these plays. And not only that, even though he had another kill opportunity, the 3rd kill, which could have potentially been on Johnny, he takes a safer option. He farms the backcams, he extends his lead, keeping it to a 2-level advantage over Sibi.
And this is where Jorm just feels really, really hard to deal with, because he is truly unpeelable in that ultimate. There is nothing that you can do to stop that damage from coming through outside of an Aegis Amulet. Shell can help.
Meditation, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about a relic to get rid of 1 hit, and he's got 3 available to him. Johnny loses almost all of his HP to FrostiaK, who's gone for a fairly aggressive build so far. Crusher after the Talaria boots, going to be a Blackthorn Hammer next. Looks like for some cheap HP.
The best way to peel a Jorm maybe is to go for these magical protection orders, right? Gauntlet of Thebes comes to mind, Heartward Amulet, that's one way of protecting it. Runic Shield doesn't even work during World Serpent because he's not affected by that aura. So you just need to apply protections to your own allies to mitigate a little bit of Dimi's damage.
Gauntlet of Thebes will do that a bit for Fusify once he's done stacking. Hayzer going with the exact same option, so both supports not particularly tanky at the moment, though certainly healthy in the sense that they've got a lot of HP, though not a lot of protection. It takes a bit to ramp up. Both supports also going for that Oracle Chalice this time around, and you can see its effects for the most part. Good amount of ward coverage on the left side of the map for both sides.
Wards win games, and for that 400 gold, you're going to be able to drop. So as long as you can place 8 wards, you've spent as much gold as you would have basically just buying regular wards. So anything beyond that 8 ward counter, you're making a huge profit off of that 1 Oracle Chalice.
Man, the Totem of Ku count is heavily in OutCold's favor. 8-1. Dimi trying to finish off this solo tower, and he'll do that. Hayzer in some trouble, though, on the bottom left side. Got caught trying to ward, I imagine. And Flashpoint able to take advantage and head straight towards the Gold Fury. Draconic Corruption there as well. Plenty of attack speed. FrostiaK gonna get in and get out. Erased by Flashpoint in the blink of an eye. Spudio's got to use the Purification Beads after a nice leap in from Fusify, and Flashpoint, they don't need the objective. They already got a huge win. They got 2 kills and a set of beads from Spudio.
That was a huge play from Flashpoint. They don't get the Gold Fury that they would have wanted, but at least they're shutting down the farm of FrostiaK. They're allowing Johnny to get level 12, get that 2nd relic, and as a Bakasura that's ahead, he's getting closer and closer to that Executioner Chinsai combination that he's going to be looking for. With already Hasten Katana, he's going to be an absolute nightmare to deal with.
Man, this is what makes Flashpoint so scary, is that I really don't feel like you can ever count them out entirely. I mean, this team has just stayed together for so long and had kind of been through the ringer. They've had their tough games, they've had their good games, but they really understand how to play in these moments. Pyromancer pulled by Flashpoint. FrostiaK, the only one local. Combat dodge up, and it's actually the shield of Achilles that gets it, and now he's looking for Johnny. Fatal strike, not there, but combat dodge is. Beautiful play by FrostiaK, and he might not even be done. Sibi's got to use his ultimate, and that'll end that chase. But FrostiaK walks in and steals away the objective and kills his opposition.
So clean. FrostiaK saying, that's not your objective, that's my objective. Being able to find the kill, not even with the fatal strike, was just the icing on the cake. And now OutCold Gaming are the ones to be able to get the objective on the left side after stealing the one on the right. There's almost no justice in the world here, Aggro. In the composition that is reliant on burning these objectives with Fafnir, Agni damage, Bakasura is a good power spike at level 12 with his items to get these objectives. They don't secure it by a small window margin.
That one hurts for Flashpoint for sure. What was an even game up until that point, now certainly in OutCold's favor. They're up almost 5,000 gold, a little bit closer to 4,000, I suppose, but man, this is now absolutely in their grasp. Dimi still has a pretty big experience lead. Otherwise, experience looks about even, but getting some of those gold items finished off, I mean, the mid lane, you can see its impact. PrettyPrime's able to finish off his third item in the Shaman's Ring before FaraKrik could finish his third option, which is probably going to be Divine Ruin. You have a lot of things that, a lot of power spike items, specifically the third, fourth item slot, that end up mattering a lot, that now OutCold should be able to finish first.
And OutCold need to start grouping up and force 5-on-5 team fights.
Yes.
Dimi going for even more bridge items. Stone of Binding being picked up. He's really trying to put in the hurt. But if he's not rotating, what use is this build at the end of the day? So still with a huge advantage for OutCold Gaming. Kespainify, though, between a rock and a hard place, forced to fly away. But I don't think he's safe when he lands.
No, he's going to get rooted. Looks like Aegis is already on cooldown for him. Prime looking to continue this chase. Exorcism there, and Kespainify heads to the grave. Dimi up and over the top. Look at that damage on the FaraKrik. FrostiaK just nearly insta-killed the poor man, and 2 members of Flashpoint already on the respawn timer. I mean, just too much damage for OutCold, or for Flashpoint to be able to answer.
Kespainify had no business being around those oracles at that point in the game. Yeah, sure, the Gold Fury was down, so you're expecting the opposition not to be there, but if you don't have the proper vision aggressively, you're just going to get collapsed on, and that's exactly what happened.
Man, that damage from Achilles is just something else. Dimi as well over the top, as Johnny has been hunting for farm. He's able to steal away some back camps. Now looking at the red buff. He'll just eat a small one and hit the gas to get out of there. Fusify might need to do the same. In fact, he needs to use his ultimate in order to try and get it done. CC chain not there. Fusify actually going in. They're trying to turn this one on a PrettyPriMe, but Fusify's already dead. Johnny does end up getting the oppositional mid laner. So that's a win so far for Flashpoint, but Dimi might not want to let this go.
Definitely not. Dimi, with one little spin onto Johnny, obliterates his health pool completely. And I like the plays from Flashpoint, but it's a desperation play. So they're looking for the red buff steal in a 3-on-5, by the way. Now, all 5 members aren't grouped up by OutCold, but they could be. You never really know. So it's a gamble that Flashpoint are taking, anticipating that they can catch 1, maybe 2 people slipping. Catching out PrettyPriMe was clutch there. Trading out Fusify, not the end of the world there, but I'm sure they would have wanted more than just a 1-for-1 trade, being behind about 6,000 gold.
How do you feel about PrettyPriMe going blink against Bakasura, Zhong? I mean, you've got no way to get away from that regurgitate. It seems like a stand-and-fight sort of moment. Do you like the choice to go for the blink?
If you are fighting on your own terms, I do like it. If you're trying to be defensive and react to Johnny's engagements, then I really dislike the blink. But with how much of an advantage OutCold Gaming has, I think it's going to be working out for PrettyPriMe in the long term.
Dimi on the backside, great flank from him, and FrostiaK's able to get the execute. Sibi in the midst of this team fight, but he's got his ultimate, so he should be okay. Will certainly be on the receiving end of some damage, though, from Prime before he gets out of there. Great flank in and a blink from FrostiaK. Now he's looking for a little bit more. Stun on a FaraKrik, rather. Couldn't get it out, but neither could FaraKrik. He was nearly killed. FrostiaK does use a Purification Bead. The Sibi hops up into that Somersault Cloud, but Fusify the target now for OutCold. And just 1 CC gets the job done for Spudio. Mid-Phoenix all but guaranteed now for OutCold. Down it goes. FaraKrik tosses in a couple bombs for good measure, but just 3 members of Flashpoint there to try and stave off the siege from OutCold. Not going to be good enough. Now it's a 9,000 gold lead. We're 19 minutes in, and now a Phoenix has been exposed. OutCold looking great so far.
Who needs Fire Giant to get the middle Phoenix? Not I, says OutCold Gaming. Being able to get these 2 picks yet again. Picking off Johnny, Fusify couldn't even get away under his own middle Phoenix. The stun CC chains executed by OutCold Gaming is near flawless. And as a result, they're really taking advantage of some of these isolated members out of Flashpoint, being able to still extend their advantage even further. Now, Flashpoint have to worry about defending their middle lane from fire minions, which is going to allow OutCold Gaming to get an easier window to secure this Fire Giant.
Now, if you're in OutCold's shoes, is there any consideration to grouping up and sieging some towers and doing this Oni Fury and just kind of waiting until 25 minutes to try and get the enhanced Fire Giant? It's such a bigger buff.
I see that logic. If you get it now, you'll still get it later anyway, right? If they were all positioned at the right side, if they secured it, let's say 20-minute mark, it'll respawn at 25 minutes, and they could still get the Oni Fury and the towers during the duration of that initial fire buff. But playing it safe with OutCold Gaming's huge 10,000 gold lead, we'll just start plucking away the left side objectives before going for the late game right side.
Flashpoint now has to worry about Oni waves, and it looks like OutCold isn't worried about the Fire Giant quite yet. They're heading towards the left side. This is where the majority of the gold left on the map is. There's the lone tier 1 that's still on Flashpoint's side of the map, though it doesn't last long. Flashpoint here.
They can't defend this.
Mount a potential defense. Yeah, I don't know how much I like this, Tully. I mean, you're already down 11K. A lot of times I think teams give up too much, but this seems like one that you might have to.
And it's not only that, because you have a Fire Minion wave in the mid lane, and then it's also an Oni Fire Minion wave, and Dimi flanking on the backhand side, looking to exploit FaraKrik.
Kespainify is the one on the receiving end of the knockup, though, as Dimi going to start channeling that World Serpent ultimate. Tier 2 tower down without much of a contest. Turns out Flashpoint wasn't too interested all along. They did get Dimi's ultimate for it, so a small win, I'd say, for Flashpoint, all things considered. They never had a chance at defending the tower itself.
Oh, absolutely not. OutCold Gaming, though, you can tell that they weren't even intending to go for the Phoenix with how Dimi used his ultimate. Like, he got off one hit, and then the next 2 were on the retreat because they want this Fire Giant while there's still Fire Minions trickling down that middle lane. There's an Oni wave on that right side tier 2 tower that's going to start chipping away at its health.
OutCold not on the Fire Giant yet, though. I feel like Oni waves are kind of your cover almost that you can kind of use to set yourself up for an easy Fire Giant pull, but that has not been the case so far. I mean, OutCold Gaming lead is continuing to grow. It hasn't started to flatline or stagnate at all, but eventually they're going to need to go for the real objective here. Looks like now might be the time. Waiting for Flashpoint to come and check it. Dimi going to use that stealth to try and initiate for them, but pretty loud as you enter into stealth. Hard to catch people off guard all the time.
Yeah, that heartbeat is like you're playing a horror game almost, and I'm not a fan of horror games. I don't know about you, Agro, and looking like a horror game from Flashpoint on the retreat.
Kespainify already into that ultimate Fusify as well. Kespainify down, FrostiaK with 1, FrostiaK with 2 off the Fatal Strike and looks to keep it going. On to FaraKrik, has the Purification Beads ready if he needs them, and FaraKrik needs a lot of help underneath that dead Phoenix. Fusify has already fallen. FrostiaK does end up getting shut down. FaraKrik with the last hit, but it was Johnny who did the majority of that work. But OutCold coming right for the Phoenix and potentially right for the end.
We'll see how they play it, because thus far, OutCold Gaming have been very conservative with how they've been executing their objectives, but it looks like in a 4-on-2, they're going to go for the throne room.
Titan, pretty healthy though, still a tier 1 tower, or tier 2 tower on the other side, but Dimi takes care of FaraKrik. Johnny, no egg is needed for PrettyPriMe. That's the deicide for OutCold, and punching up towards the top of the standings. OutCold take game 1.
Impressive performance from a team that's currently 2-6 in the standings, dominating Flashpoint in game number 1. A lot of it came down to the solo lane pressure, stripping away the blue buff from Sibi, putting Dimi in such a huge advantage. Once he started rotating Dimi on the Jormungandr, you felt that World Serpent.
Yeah, we were kind of questioning, do we really want to give Sibi his best god in Sun Wukong? But it felt like that was almost on purpose, because Sun Wukong is a god that struggles out his blue buff, and that was the game plan. I mean, it was right side pressure onto Johnny and Sibi all game long, and it pays off for OutCold, even with Hayzer subbing in. Let's throw it to the desk to break down game 1.
We'd be more than happy to, Aggro. Finch and Tom here to break down a big win for OutCold, who, like they said just now, the casters, they've been struggling up until late, but they won last week, and they grab a win here up against Flashpoint, and they do it in a really commanding fashion. They had pressure from early on.
Exactly, and this is a return to normalcy. Not normalcy from what we've kind of gotten, but normalcy from what we've kind of expected out of this squad. A lot of high-profile names here, and not getting the wins was the opposite of what is kind of supposed to happen, heavy air quotes.
Sure.
And so watching this one go down, I think this is a little bit more kind of in tune with what people were expecting out of OutCold.
And they were able to do it in a couple places, too. They had pressure on Sibi from the early game, which you saw that casters point out. Another thing I noticed was that Prime and Hayzer were really aggressive playing together like in the middle lane and really trying to bully out FaraKrik every chance they got. They killed him by his red buff. They were pushing him out of lane all the time and forcing his relics on cooldown. This is a team that came in with a game plan, and they just played right to it.
Every opportunity we saw them pushing forward and going for the gas pedal. Every single time there was an opportunity to look into the jungle, they were looking for the invades. Every single time there was an opportunity to look at the objective, they were looking at the Gold Fury, etc. Like you said, this was an OutCold gaming team that absolutely knew what they were trying to do, and, well, they did it.
Yeah, exactly like that. Poor FaraKrik spent a lot of time in black and white here in this game. And I was really impressed with FrostiaK 2-man on this Achilles, and I'm glad that he was the next one we had in this reel because he was able to step forward a lot and create some space. You know, I was talking about how I'd be real surprised if OutCold won this game early, but then I was like, oh yeah, they've got this Achilles in the jungle, and he can a lot of the times get you so much early pressure if you can play it right. Well, FrostiaK played it right, man, to the tune of 7-4-2, and was able to set up for him. Oh, and shout out to my man Spudio 4-4 because he was getting a lot of pressure from this Freya and still managed to stay comfortable.
Carry certainly found there. Great job from the Jing way. I was looking on the short side 100% like Anatoly was. 4-0-7 for Dimi. Of course, that is helped by the team a little bit. FrostiaK with the 7 kills. That's going to be a big part of what allowed Dimi to kind of do it. But Aggro mentioned something very important. Sibi gets on Wukong, and that means that OutCold are going to look for this invade strategy time and time again. He's going to struggle getting that buff. That means that Dimi and FrostiaK are not going to struggle getting that buff, and then that kind of all spiraled out of control from there. Johnny couldn't get any help from Sibi, etc., etc., etc.
And shout out to Hayzer as well for being able to for being able to step up for this team and come in, especially when Breeze, I really thought, had been looking good for them those last couple of weeks.
I miss him.
It makes good shoes to fill. And Hayzer was absolutely able to do it, man. He played this Terra really, really well for this squad. A lot of the times he was soaking up damage, but he was also doing a really good job setting up for them as well, putting them in positions where they can find those kills, particularly some of the synergy we were able to see between him and Prime I thought was really nice too. So, yeah, just a good job all around from OutCold, man. Also just a solid win.
That's what you expect out of this team. Well, that's what you should expect out of this team.
Right.
And we haven't seen it. So I'm glad a turnaround happened here in game number 1. I'm excited to see if it lasts until the number 2.
That's right. If it was week 2, I would have, and I saw those names, I'd have been like, yeah, that's how that goes. But based on what we've seen, maybe it is a bit surprising. Let's